MBA hopefuls. We are live on the air with MBA Waves, talking all things business and education. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, which helps us continue to create all this free content. I'm your host today, Krithika, joined by my co-host Bara. Hey, Bara.
Hi.
And we are so thrilled to have our own special guest joining us from Ann Arbor, Michigan, being Michigan grads ourselves. So a big shout out to Lysa Wang, who's the Director of Admissions and EDI Special Projects. Megan Anda, she's the Managing Director of the Office of the Action-Based Learning. Manisha Vupputuri, she is a full-time MBA student in her second year. And Trent Hill, also a full-time student in the second year. A big warm welcome to you all, and go blue. So today on episode 153, we are all really gung-ho on getting in on the action-based learning at Michigan Ross. So you're going to see more of what's real and what the Ross experience exactly is, both inside and outside of the classroom. And of course, what kind of results can you expect from a Ross MBA? So jumping right in, a big warm welcome to everybody. And this is a question to Lysa. Lysa, let us know about what's new and happening at Michigan Ross.
There's so much going on. I mean, it's not new anymore, but we just welcomed one of our most competitive classes in the fall in September. And so we had some record-breaking numbers there with the average GMAT score of 728, average GPA of 3.42. We had 53% students of color within our class, so really excited about that. In addition, here at Ross, we're really prioritizing our students' mental health. And so we actually also just hired a director of wellness here at Ross. And this week is actually Wellness Week. I'm not sure if Trent or Manisha are going to take part in any of the events going on, but the MBA Council has put on really a lot of cool events this week for our students, from yoga and Pilates to rock climbing to, I think there's a step challenge, and there's a lot of other great things going on. So very excited about that.
Neat. So it's interesting for me because I went to Michigan also, and I have a test prep company, and we integrate wellness into test prep. It's nice to see in one sentence from all of you, from you, Lysa, that you've got the 728 and wellness, like in the same thing. From really, I mean, Michigan is also such a well-inducing place, you know, like the Four Seasons, and it's just such a culturally aware and alive place to go to school. I'd like to know from you, Megan, just to bounce on to the next question, that a little bit about this action-based learning, because I don't think that this was, I didn't go to the business school. I went to Rackham, but I know that it's like the signature MAP program. And if you can tell us a little bit about that, what is MAP? How is it transformed learning and outcomes, and also about the action-based learning piece?
Yeah, definitely. So MAP stands for Multidisciplinary Action Projects. And we've actually been doing them for over 30 years at the full-time MBA level. So we pioneered this way back in the 90s, but you know, it's been a Ross thing. So it is one of the flagship experiences that our MBA students have. And what it is at the end of your first year, right? You've done all your core courses. This is kind of like a capstone to putting in place like what you've just learned in core courses in the real world. So you have a chance to work on real projects from real organizations, and you know, they're business projects that span all different functions, all different industries. We run anywhere from 70 to 80 projects with our full-time students a year. And you get a chance as a student to work on a team, and 4 to 6 students work on a team on one of these real business challenges, and, you know, learn, obviously kind of put together what you've learned, but also make an impact with these organizations. So it's a really great experience to actually kind of put in place really early on in your business education, what you've just learned. And, you know, we often see alum and these great partners coming back to get great access to our students that, you know, are looking for a fresh perspective. So it's something that we hear from students, and our students, I'm sure, can give their perspectives too of that experience, and, you know, what they get out of it. We know that there's a lot that you can get out of it, because it's really not, you know, it's not sitting in a class classroom. It's not theoretical. These are real current challenges.
And that affect change, right? Like the people are actually integrating themselves into a real experience so they can actually see the impact that they're having.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's one of the key learning objectives of the course. So it is a required course, right? So at the end of the day, there's learning objectives. There's faculty that are guiding these students. We have a whole office that helps support for administrative and logistical things. But yeah, anything that can happen in the business world does happen in a MAP project, right? We've had sponsors that were let go in the middle of a project, right? And sort of having to deal with, what does that mean? Who can take this on, right? We've had, a project that was focused on, marketing this particular project or product, right? And then switching over like, hey, it didn't get approval from the executive team. Like now we have to rethink how we're going to tackle this entire market. So absolutely, right. It's a great way for students also to understand how any of these sponsoring organizations work, right? Just like a little mini internship, getting in there and kind of seeing the culture and the environment. So, but yeah, there's all kinds of fun stories every year of like what unexpected things happen, because that's the real world.
Right. It's not an antiseptic experience.
Yeah.
Mhm. And Megan, continuing on to what you said before, in addition to the map, you have other things, like, for example, advising and a lot more, even getting into entrepreneurship and so on. So, can you speak a little bit more on the other action based learning experiences that your office offers?
Yeah, so across Ross, there's all different types of options to kind of get into action-based learning. And so the core course is obviously the MAP course, right? That is required. But there's all different types of electives. There's other courses that incorporate action-based learning and have real, again, somewhat similar, right? Real organizations coming in and talking about working through like crisis challenges and how to steer an organization through a crisis or an unexpected time. We don't necessarily plan for that in MAP, but it happens. And then there's also sort of the co-curricular opportunities and engagements on like investment funds and the entrepreneurship side. So we actually have, that's something that, so from our office, like we oversee the course piece, and then actually all the different centers and institutes here at Ross have different pieces. So I'm sure too, Lysa, you might have some good ones to call out for folks.
Yeah, so like Megan said, our centers and institutes, they provide a whole full suite of action-based learning opportunities outside of the signature MAP project. So if you're interested in, leadership skills, the Sanger Leadership Center offers, a storytelling workshop. There's also the Leadership Crisis Challenge that Megan alluded to earlier, where you're, simulating a real crisis and you're reporting to or you're working with an executive board team member, and then you have to present that to like a press. And so it's a real way for you to learn how to work under pressure and how to communicate difficult decisions and difficult conversations. And then we also have Business Plus Impact for people who are interested in, environment impact, social impact. And so they also have so many different types of, again, action-based learning opportunities, from the nonprofit board fellows. Sorry if I'm getting that name wrong. Trent and Manisha, feel free to, jump in and be like, that's not the right name. But basically, you're sitting as a board member of a nonprofit organization and, helping out nonprofits. There's also, our Business Plus Tech initiative. For those of you who are interested in technology, that is also something that you can really get involved with. They have the Plus Tech Innovation Jam. And so that's another competition where you're working cross-functionally with different graduate students across the University of Michigan. So it could be an MBA student from the College of Engineering, a student from the School of Information, and then all of you guys are working collectively together to develop a product and then pitching it to, a group of investors. So again, really putting what you're learning to action. And I'm actually going to call on one of our students here to share kind of what action-based learning opportunity were you able to really take advantage of with MAP and also outside of MAP at Ross?
Yeah, I could go first. Hey guys, excited to be here. Congratulations to you all getting to this place and embarking on this MBA journey. It's a long journey, but it's well worth it. I'd like to speak a little bit about my MAP project. I absolutely loved my MAP project. This past May, I was able to work with a nonprofit in Malawi, and that's in Southern Africa. This nonprofit really specializes and focuses on building a healthy ecosystem around young girls in the area. What's happening in this portion, or call it like geographic location in Africa, young girls after the age of 15, if they aren't able to pay to go to school, then they have been forced into marriages, and they just have several challenges that are really marginalizing them. And so this organization is put into place to really better their lives. We had to go to Malawi for 3 weeks. We focused on brand development. I have a background in investment banking, so I wanted to do something a bit different. And also I had interest in this space because in my previous work experience, I worked for Procter & Gamble, and I was also on their baby care brands. And so I learned that there were disparities impacting women of color, especially in the maternal space. So that really awakened sort of an interest and a calling for me to help in this area. And so I was really excited to get to work with the nonprofit. While we were there, I mean, really, we just developed a great relationship with the sponsors. We were able to identify their target audience. We created a brand strategy for them, but we took it a bit further because we got so ingrained in the project and really developed a sense of sort of responsibility to make the lives better for these young girls. And so we raised $10,000. We were able to send 20 girls back to school. We created a full website for this nonprofit organization. Received an excellent on the project. Built relationships with some business owners in the area. It really allows you to take everything that you've been learning in the classroom and apply it. And I think it's important to learn, strategies and frameworks and all of these things in class, but it's different to have a human experience and really have that interpersonal connection, and your emotional intelligence and some of the soft skills that you learn start to come out when you have those interactions. And I think that's the beauty in MAP. It's an opportunity for you to take what you've learned and really put it into action. So I know I spoke a lot, but I really love MAP, and I would preach the gospel to anyone that asked me about it. So I had a great experience. Manisha, I'll push it off to you.
Yeah, I think MAP was also great for us. I was part of one of the Tata Group projects where we were with Air India, and we actually experienced the Air India flight while going there. And our whole project was about forming new innovations for the airline company, which was interesting because they were just sort of bought out by the Tata Group from the government, and it was a changing time for them. And trying to figure out what we could do in place to satisfy customers while they're trying to replace these older planes was an interesting experience. And I think the idea of MAP and action-based learning in this sense, it's really helpful to be able to have this sort of place where you immerse yourself into the learning, use those experiences and put them into action, but still have a safe space where you can lean on the support of your not only colleagues and classmates, but also a peer mentor. We had an MBA 2 coach who was guiding us through it and talking about interpersonal issues, if there were any on your team, how to work those out. Or even we had 2 faculty advisors who were also helping us with the process and setting the expectations and standards about what could actually be done in such a short amount of time. But it was very interesting to see how the different culture and work experience was there. And we were there during Holi, so we got to immerse ourselves in the experience. 2 of my teammates never saw the Taj Mahal and got to take a trip there. And it was very cool at the end. We were able to actually present to the C-suite officer, the CXO, Rajesh Dogra. So that was very interesting. And at the end, in the beginning, he was I only have 20 minutes and then I have to leave for an hour-long presentation. But he actually stayed till the end and was interested in probably putting on the prototypes we talked about into action. So I'm hoping that maybe the next time I ride an Air India flight, I'll see some of our suggestions come into place there.
And I know, oh, sorry. Did you have some more to add?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about the like outside of MAP.
Yes.
Yeah, like other action-based learning experiences, like you don't have to go outside of the classroom actually. Like even within the classroom, there is action-based learning. Like I remember for marketing, one of our projects was literally, we had a progressive people come in and they gave us like an information session about their company basically. And our project was to literally make a new flow basically. So it was very interesting trying to like figure that out and prepare a brief as if we're actually going to put that into action. And like another one was, I think Grubhub, they also came in and they're like, okay, so we're trying to target a new customer segment. What would you do? Who do you recommend? How do you recommend targeting them? So like even within the classroom, we get the action-based learning. And as Lysa mentioned, even outside of the classroom, like you can always join an investment fund. Like I'm part of International Investment Fund. We make the decisions by the students, decide who to invest in internationally, how to source those people, how to build a trusting relationship, all of that. It's like student run. And even like Tech Innovation Jam, I also joined that and found it very interesting to like form a project. Like we actually also had undergrads on our team and like having that cross-disciplinary experience and trying to pitch a story to people, like what the professors look at is different from what investors are looking at, and trying to like frame that pitch in a voice that they would want to see is very interesting, I think. Yeah.
It's super interesting because it seems like these projects really maintain relevance to the current trends in the industry and what's actually happening in live time. I'm curious how did the professors support you in the field? And also, you talked a little bit about the classroom, but how the classroom learning came to be used. So if you could talk a little bit about the arc of that.
I can give the experience of, I think it's great to hear from the students exactly how their individual faculty, because it ranges a little bit, but I'll definitely chat a little bit about how we structure it, right? So the structure first is it's teams of 4 to 6 students, and then they have 2 faculty advisors typically that help support. And so what's really cool is the students get to give their input on what they're interested in from a project perspective, but faculty do too. So typically faculty are obviously supporting projects that is in their area of expertise or interest, right? And you usually have, because they're multidisciplinary projects, the goal is also to have 2 different faculty in 2 different areas. So even if it's a strategy project, you'll have a strategy professor, but like you might also have a finance professor who gives a different perspective. And so the goal is that they're truly advisors, right? So we do want the students to own the project. And I'm sure we hear a lot, I don't know, for you two this past year, but sometimes that's a little uncomfortable at first, is like getting up to speed and saying, okay, like we collectively are really leading this. It's not what faculty says. There's no team leader. And the faculty are there to support, right? And so they have oftentimes with some of the sponsors, they've worked with the sponsors before. So they may have input into, how the organization works, or again, like they might remind you of the frameworks that you learned in your core course, or some ideas of how to structure something that's like not exactly what you learned last semester, but like how it still might apply. But they're there to advise at the end of the day, and the students get to take a chance on driving what the recommendation should ultimately be. There's also a lot of other, I'll kind of call out some of the other unsung heroes that support the students. So beyond the main faculty advisors, every team has a communications advisor as well, who helps with any written or oral deliverables. So, talking about presenting to C-suite, that this might be the first experience that some students have. So we have our communications faculty that help with that kind of thing. We also obviously have, Manisha mentioned the peer coaches that help with that as well. So you have an MBA 2 who's gone through it before. And then you also have students have access to a librarian. They have a dedicated librarian who helps with secondary research. So, they are there to, when you're like, hey, I need to learn about, the aerospace industry in India because I don't know anything about it, right? They can help pull all of the resources that the university has, which are really substantial, into something that's meaningful. So I'm sure I always like to call out them because sometimes it's like, well, obviously faculty are huge help, but we purposely put a lot in place so that students can learn, but really are set up to be successful too in a really short amount of time, because the projects also are only 7 weeks. The students are full time on them, so they work 40 hours a week. So it's a pretty intense sprint, and so we want to make sure that they have the resources at their disposal to use how they see fit. So that's a little bit of like the structure. Obviously, every team probably utilized different people differently, which is kind of the intention. But I think the key is obviously we want to make sure they have the resources.
Yeah, it sounds super exciting, right? And super, super, potent. I mean, to have even the Trent, you working in Malawi and Manisha working in India, like you're not in Detroit, even though you also work with Grubhub. I mean, it's really incredible the range of programs. I'm curious, just from a personal perspective or professional, have these experiences shifted your trajectory or the way that you look at your learning at Ross? Like, how have they impacted you?
Yeah, I can go first on that one. I think it's a great question. As I said earlier, I had some interest in social impact, and I was just trying to figure out, what that looks like in today's environment. And I think my MAP experience was a great opportunity for me to kind of get some hands-on experience with that. I'm going into investment banking, focusing on the consumer and retail space, and that is a space that I'm passionate about. But later on in my career, call it longer term, I want to find a way to really develop and have some type of social impact. I think what this has done for me as a business leader, as a person that's developing business leadership skills, it's helped me to start thinking about ways that we can ingrain social impact into creating profits or creating value for companies. And then also as a business leader, I'm just trying to figure out what it is that's truly important for me. And so those are sort of some of the questions that I've been asking myself since I've returned from Malawi. And I've even set up time to connect with Professor Ted London, who was actually my advisor during my MAP experience. And we talked through things like this. And I still keep close personal connections and relationships with my sponsors back in Malawi. And we just talked through ways that not only myself, but my team, and then some business leaders within the Ross community can actually be of service and actually help to deliver that social impact around the world. And I think that's extremely important if we want to continue to move in a positive trajectory as a global community. So, sort of my perspective.
Yeah, it sounds like it really impacted you in a really deep way.
I'd say it did.
I because I went to Michigan undergrad and grad school, of course, this is what Michigan offers, right? Like it's so potent. And I mean, Michigan has the largest alumni in the world. Any place I go, there's always a Michigan hat somewhere, like you always run into people, and we always kind of get it. Like, and this little piece that you're talking about, which is so deeply personal, also has universal relevance. And all of these girls that you helped, I mean, you've radically changed their lives, right? It's had a huge impact. And of course, Michigan Ross is at the lead of this. So it's really wonderful to hear. Manisha, do you want to add what your personal or the impact that it had on you?
Yeah, I think mine was maybe not as deep of an impact, but it really like prepared me for the next experience. I was like coming out of the tech industry at Ford, like I was doing automotive tech space, and I didn't really have an idea of like how consulting would be. And that was sort of what I was aiming to pivot through. And I think the MAP experience really helped me in that sense. Like it gave me a basis. This is how consulting life is. And being actually based on innovation was helpful because that was actually what my internship ended up being about. So I found it like a great way to like put into action everything I learned and like practice. And then it like set me up very well for the next stage of the internship, and then could go through that way. And then I think like the learnings that we take from class, it's sort of showing they're not just written out text. You're not like just learning for the sake of learning in that sense. They're actually like actionable items that you can take into the real world with you.
These are so interesting experience to hear. And one of the things that came up to me was, which I thought was very interesting, is it looks like you already have two internships, so to speak, thanks to the MAP. That's kind of it. I want to understand how the ABL and all the other experiences helped you for your internships specifically, and if there's anything else that helps you towards the recruiting process and for designing future careers. Trent, you want to take this up first?
Yeah, I can start on this. I think so. Just to give a bit of background, investment banking recruiting starts sort of like as soon as you step foot on campus. But I think, as I think about how this helped me during my internship experience, I think three ways. The first way is it gave me global perspective. It allowed me to look past sort of some of the things that are happening in the US and start to ask questions about what's happening geopolitically that could potentially impact business. And then second, just giving me client-facing opportunities. I think we spoke about it earlier, but it's so important to be able to translate what it is that you learn in the classroom and actually be able to make it applicable to serve a client need. And I think that's what I'm going to need in investment banking. It's an extremely client-facing business, and I think having that consulting-like experience through my MAP project is really going to serve me at the next level. So I would say that's what it provided for me. And Manisha, I'll pass it to you to give a little bit of color on that.
Yeah, I think for me, it helped like trying to pick up a topic really quickly. Like when we had Air India, I had no idea what was going on with the aerospace industry at that time, and learning about it in a different country was totally new experience. So I think having that experience sort of like set me up a little bit for my internship, because I had two different industries, like the industrial parts industry and like the healthcare private, like public hospitals that also are academic hospitals. So like trying to figure out those two industries really quickly, because like your internship is also like a similar time span, very short, very quick, sort of like how MAP is too. So I think it helped a lot in that area. And then as Trent said, the like being able to present and talk to the C-suite and having that experience also helped a bit.
I think one thing that I missed out that I definitely want to speak on is like the entrepreneurial type of focus that it has. It really, MAP puts you in a position in which you don't know much about an industry, you don't know much about a sponsor, and you have maybe a week or two to figure out everything that it is that you need to know. And then you get in front of a sponsor and you have another week to ask questions and develop a framework, develop some understanding of the organization. And like you basically are working with very limited material of knowledge, and you have to develop a product in literally like 4 to 5 weeks. And that's what some of these industries are going to look like. That's what consulting is going to look like. That's what banking is going to look like. So there's a bit of pressure that is placed upon us to really perform. And I think, it's interesting to see what type of business leader you are and how you respond to certain pressures and a certain timeline, short timelines, in order to be able to deliver some type of product. And I think that's very entrepreneurial and extremely helpful. I know from a personal lens, I was able to figure out a lot about myself and how I interact in those spaces.
Yeah, one of the things we hear at a macro level is sort of exactly what you both are sort of talking about, is that particularly when you think of the timing, MAP happens right before an internship. So it's not just right that you're like out of the classroom and you've had this experience of consulting. It's really nice because students go right from MAP into an internship. So they're already in that working mindset, because even though it's a course, like I said, it's 7 weeks and it's the only course that students are taking. So they're not attending other courses at the same time. And it is fully like a 40-hour a week engagement. So I think like it just prepares them right off the bat. They might get a couple of weeks off between MAP and their internship, and then they're right back into like a 40-hour a week plus engagement in their internship. And so we do hear from employers time after time that students seem to just be a little bit more prepared to have made that switch. Because obviously, you're not coming from that classroom experience where you have these dedicated times and you're in that kind of crunch time already. So that's something just to kind of lend to that, like we hear consistently that they're already out of the classroom, which is kind of nice.
I have a logistics question about that. When does that take place? Like, is it like, let's say it's fall semester. Do they have that for fall semester? And then what do they do the rest of that semester? Do they actually go into the internship, or like, what's the logistics of this?
Yeah, so it's the last quarter of their first year. So we have semesters, but then basically there's sort of
for quarters. Okay.
Quarters effectively, right? And so it's March, April is the time frame. So students come back from spring break, they've done their exams, they're well rested or not from spring break, and they hit the ground running Monday morning at 9 a.m. We get them going on MAP, and it's the 7 weeks, March through April. Michigan Ross's time frame is like a little earlier than a lot of other schools. So classes usually wrap up like very early May. And then, they've got like I said, they got a couple weeks off. So yeah, that's all they've done the last 3 quarters, the first 3 quarters of their year. They're taking obviously the standard coursework.
Understood. Thanks for explaining that. Cause I was trying to figure out what the it sounded modular, but I wasn't sure how that worked. I kind of want to get a larger view here. And I'd love, Lysa, if you could really talk about now, what's the admissions process to get into Michigan Ross? Because our listeners today who are thinking about applying are going to want to know what to expect. And you said that all of the scores were like really high this year, but we want to hear, what is it like and what suggestions can you offer a great applicant?
Yeah, I would say, don't be intimidated by these stats, right? Those are just the averages, which again means there are people below that average and then there's people above that average. So it's not like if you don't have a 728 GMAT, you're not going to get in. But our application process is quite simple. It's pretty standard. We require a standardized test score. We don't have a GMAT or GRE waiver process, but you can just submit the statement of academic readiness that we have already on our application form. And then obviously you'll need to, answer all of our short essay answers or questions. We will need 1 letter of recommendation, your resume, and then all of our interviews are by invitation only. So if you applied in round 1, you should have gotten your interview invitation last week. And then all of them are on Zoom, conducted by our alums. And every time, students say, how can I make my application stand out? What can I do, to make myself the most competitive? I really want to just tell you, there are so many things that you can't control, right? You can't control who your competitors will be. You can't control someone that's going to get a 750 on the GMAT. You can't control your GPA. Maybe that was in your undergrad, because you're not going to go back and be able to change that GPA. So focus on just creating the best holistic overall strong application that you can, right? Because during our application review process, we're not looking just at one certain area or two certain areas. We're looking at collectively who you are as a candidate, what you are going to bring to our program and our community. Are you someone who has a very clear MBA goal, a clear reason for why you need an MBA? Does the timing make sense? So really, it's just thinking through, doing some personal and professional reflection, thinking through what this MBA will help you in the future, after graduation, or what you hope to gain throughout this time, and then crafting the best, application that you can, and just putting your best foot forward. There's really no secret, formula or combination to like ensure that you can get in, right? There's no such thing. It's really just about doing the best that you can, making sure you're, focusing on even the smallest things, like double checking to make sure you don't have any misspelled words, any grammatical errors in your essays. Even those things can really make a big difference. So again, just, do the best that you can, be authentic. It's really important. And then put your best foot forward, and then apply when you feel the most ready with your application, and not when you think would be the easiest to get in. Yeah.
Thanks. That's super
Lysa, I
helpful.
had a quick follow-up question for you. Like, we had two quakes last year. One was the introduction of Gen AI and their spawn, like I like to think of it. And of course, we had a lot of shakes in the test world, where we had that focus and a new GRE and everything else. Can you speak a little bit about what you're seeing with respect to the test, and also the use of Gen AI and others? What's your policy and so on?
Yeah. So we can't stop you from using AI tools, right? We're not going to, stop you from using it, but we want you to use it responsibly, right? Make sure, again, you're being authentic, because believe it or not, we've read so many essays, we can tell when it's written by you or when it's written by an AI, because as great as AI tools are, there's still a very distinctive way to which they sound, and it's just not very, I would say, authentic or human. And so, yes, you can use it if you would like to use it as like kind of like Grammarly, right? Checking your grammar, using that as someone to proofread, but make sure that you are still writing your essays and being authentic, because at the end of the day, that's who we're going to know you as, right? Through your essays. And if you are not being authentic, and you are getting the AI to write these, responses for you, even after you come into Ross, that's not who you are. You're coming in with this persona of who you are, and that's not going to be a great experience for you or for anyone in the community. So I would really say, use it to your advantage. If you need someone to help proofread, it's similar. I almost see it as similar as, using, a consultant to help write your essays, right? Maybe using a consultant to proofread, that would be great, but not necessarily to get someone to write it for you completely. And then in terms of the GMAT focus, that's a question that we get a lot of these days about, well, what's the average GMAT focus score that you're looking for? And, what does that look like? Are you still, taking the old GMAT? And the answer is yes, we are still taking the old GMAT, because as long as your score is valid for 5 years, then there's no reason why we wouldn't take it. And to be very honest, last year, GMAT rolled this out in the middle of the recruiting cycle. So I think throughout the entire industry, there's really, I don't think anyone was really looking at an average GMAT focus score, because it's so new. It's too new for anyone to really decide how to evaluate applicants just based on the GMAT focus. And so we're still using the conversion chart that GMAT provides to convert from the old GMAT score to the new GMAT focus score. And that's what we'll continue to do until we are seeing that at least 80 to 90% of our students are actually taking the GMAT focus and submitting the GMAT focus score versus the old GMAT, because then that's when we would have a more, I would say, factual representation of what that looks like, rather than just an average of maybe like 10, 20% of the class.
Neat. I'm curious, because I know the campus so well. Can you talk a little bit about you touched upon how the learning can draw from different parts of the campus, but can you talk a little bit about just the rich campus access the students have in addition to the business school? I don't know if that's that's something that I experienced both as an undergrad and grad student, that it wasn't just that I was in Rackham, but I could take classes in other areas. I can meet students in other fields. And I know that other schools have that, but it feels really rich at Michigan. Someone address that?
We have 22 established dual degrees. And on top of that, if out of those 22, you're like, none of these are of interest to me, you can actually establish your own dual degree program. And then on top of that, like what you said earlier, you can take classes throughout any of the schools and programs here. We have 117 top-ranked graduate programs across the University of Michigan. And probably Trent, Manisha, you guys can talk about, what that experience has been like for you as an MBA student, in your classes, in your electives. Feel free to chime in. But it really is not just you're secluded to the Ross MBA community.
Yeah, I'll call out one cool course that is perfect because it's kind of action-based learning, but it's also cross-campus. It's called the Living Business Leadership Experience, or LBLE. And so it's structured very similar to MAP, but it's an elective. And what's really cool about it is it's cross-school, cross-colleges. So there are Ross MBAs who take it. There are Ross BBA undergrads who take it. And then across any school, if you're sort of junior, senior, or graduate level standing, so you have kind of enough background behind you, you can take the class. And this is the same sort of thing. You're working on a real project for a real company. And it's just a really fun, it ends up being like 50% Ross students. And that, again, distributes between graduate and undergrads, and 50% kind of the rest of the school. You get a lot of College of Engineering students, a lot of LS&A students. And so it's just something that Ross actually facilitates, but we hear all the time is just it kind of has all the benefits of action-based learning, but in some ways is even more representative, because oftentimes in the business world, you're not just working with other MBAs or other business students, right? You're working with the engineering folks who are developing your product and that sort of thing. So that's just one cool call out in terms of a course that we really do look across the school to the entire university to promote.
Yeah. And I remember when I was a student, you can go in a weekend, you can hear the Dalai Lama at Hill Auditorium, and then you can go to a football game, and then you can hear like a concert by, a top performer. Like Ann Arbor is a small college town, but it really packs a huge punch. It's just got everything that a major city would have, but done so much nicer. Right. It's just nicer there. Right. It's just much more approachable, cleaner, healthier, I think. I mean, my opinion, it's just so you're not losing by going to a place in the middle of nowhere, because Ann Arbor really is a world-class city with world-class scholars. You've got a world-class program. You've got world-class deli. You've got Zingerman's. You've got just so much in the community, at the school, with embedded within this amazing community. So it was such a privilege for me to be able to go there. Krithika, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question for Manisha and Trent in terms of how has the classroom been like, especially what is your classroom experience, and what stayed with you, or what's the favorite course that you like, or anything you would like to share about it?
Manisha, I'll let you start this one off.
Yeah, I think the classroom experience has been, I'm an undergrad engineering major in computer science, also from U of M. So in comparison to that, I feel the classroom has felt a lot more friendly and collaborative. It's really engaging to hear all my classmates' experiences, and everyone is willing to listen to each other and view different sides of the same problem, but different opinions. So I found it very engaging in that aspect. And then they try to make it so it's not just case-based. The action-based learning component comes in. You're doing hands-on activities, so it's not really losing your attention in that sense. And then although you took a break from college and you came back into it, I heard even some of the students who had a longer break, they're easy to come back into the swing of things and attend all the classes. And a lot of our projects are group-based and group work, so you're able to rely on your classmates and learn new things from their situations. And we come from such a wide breadth of backgrounds, where like you could hear someone talking about their experience in the military, or some experience working in nonprofits in Africa or something. And you hear like all these different viewpoints, and it really helps make you a better rounded individual and better suited towards the workplace. And I think my favorite class so far, I think that's like our one. There were so many good classes. Honestly, like just last term I took Leading a Good Life, which was more based on like how you can make yourself a better person, but also be happier in your life, and also have the research behind why people feel this way, maybe how they can implement it. But I know a favorite amongst our students, and I hope to take it in winter, is the CEO class, we call it. It's like Business Leadership in Changing Times by Mike Barger. And that's a very like, it's basically the crisis challenge, but every day. You're put into like a situation where you role play a company that's going through some crisis. For example, like a company that's been hacked and you're a cybersecurity company or something like that. And you have to be a stakeholder in it, like whether you're part of the C-suite, the press, someone on like a stakeholder, maybe a customer who is like disadvantaged in the situation. And you have to act that out for that whole week. And there will actually be like someone from the company there, and they will like judge you on how you did and then tell you what they did in the actual situation and how their company handled it. And you get to like sort of ask them questions, turn it back around. So it's a very engaging experience that I hope to also participate in. I think you're muted, Trent.
Sorry. I think Manisha smashed that question. And I don't have much to add to it. I think that was a great response. I'll just say earlier we spoke about having so many dual degree students, and we spoke a little bit about how that shows up. I think it really shows up in the classroom. We spoke about having diverse perspectives, but it shows up differently when you have a classroom and you're talking about value. You're in a classroom and you're talking about valuations or brand strategies, and you have maybe a JD MBA or maybe an MD MBA give their perspective and really leveraging like their Juris Doctor or their medical doctor backgrounds. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Also in the classroom, I think that it's very collaborative, like Manisha said, but there is an opportunity to sort of combat opinions or really challenge each other. And I think that's what I find most intriguing about classes. I love to see how other people think within the class, but I also I like when there's a bit of tension in the classroom and you really are able to like come up with new ideas and new thoughts. I find that to be very interesting. One of my favorite classes here at Ross is strategic brand management, and it's led by Dr. Marcus Collins, and he is an amazing professor. I advise everyone to do a quick search on him. I loved how he was able to bring everyone's cultural experiences into the forefront of the classroom and help us understand how that leads brand strategies and how sort of important it is, and also how, you know, your culture and your life experiences help to guide your decision-making process. So I think that was one of my favorite classes here. But yes, I mean, the diverse opinions and the challenging sort of aspect of the classroom is really interesting to me and what I enjoyed most about the classroom experience here at Ross.
Oh yeah, enough of the echo chambers already. Yeah, we need this diversity so much in the world today, especially on various different forums and social media and religion and politics everywhere. Awesome. So I had a question for Megan here. Like, how do you use the alumni network for ABL, and how do these lead to recruiting offers and different career options for the MBAs?
Yeah, I mean, so the alumni network is amazing at Michigan and at Ross. And so they help, Lisa mentioned they obviously do the interviews. They sponsor like for every year's a little different, but maybe 40 to 50% of our projects. So that's one other really amazing thing that this gives them the opportunity to engage with current students and then vice versa, right? So current students get to work with these organizations, which also, by the way, are often, led by or infiltrated with a lot of Michigan Ross alum. And so these, the sponsors, right, like they've been through it before. And so they can come up with compelling projects for students. And, that's where we really see great partnerships with these external organizations when they understand, it's a win-win for everyone. It's a course for students, but it's also an opportunity for the company itself to get something out of it. And that's often talent, right? It's a chance to show current students like what it's like to work at this organization, and build connections that are kind of continue to build the strong alumni network that we have. So we get a lot of projects from alums. So it's a great opportunity. And we always look to our MBAs who say that they had a life-changing experience and loved it. We'll hit them up in a couple of years and say, do you guys want to give back and sponsor a project and get some great work out of it too? So I think there's just, there's countless ways across Ross for alum to interact with current students and give back. And the great thing is action-based learning is just another one of them that, maybe they can't come speak, maybe they're not close enough to Ann Arbor that they can't come speak, or, don't have, maybe they can't formally recruit, but it's still a chance for them to stay connected. And we love to see that.
I will add on a little story I heard. So while MAP is not really like a pathway to an internship offer, there have been successful stories of students, doing the MAP, getting to know the company, networking with these executives or, whoever is sponsoring this company. And then eventually during their interviews for the internship, they have that upper leg, right? They put this MAP project on their resume. They already know the lingo, the culture of the company. So they're more, at an advantage when they're speaking with these people who are interviewing them. And that has landed, eventually turned out to be an internship offer at the exact company that they did their MAP project at. So while it's not like a guaranteed 100%, pipeline for your summer internship, it's definitely a huge advantage for our MBA students.
Yeah, that's a great call out, especially for students that are looking for people that are looking for something that's maybe a little bit more unique. I mean, Trent mentioned, right, for investment banking, you're recruiting sort of like day one. So maybe not so much for that industry, right? But for folks that are looking for something, maybe come in and have a little bit different focus or a little bit more niche. It's always an opportunity, and we actually always say, like, if students want to bring us a MAP project, they can. It's not required by any means. But if you're like, hey, I've been working with this organization, like I'm super pumped about them, this is where I want to go, you can, like, that's one of the great things, you can kind of craft what you want your experience to be. And we actually have that every year. There's one or two projects that, like, some student is like, I've built this relationship, I'd love to do a MAP project with them, and then, like Lisa said, who knows what that leads to for an internship or a career. So there's a lot of ways that we can be creative to help get students what they want.
Sorry, Bara, you're on mute.
Two mutes this day, right? So it sounds really dynamic and exciting, and it sounds like there's a collective and an individual journey, like really clearly throughout all of this. Curious, maybe Lisa, you could talk to this. Is what is Michigan Ross doing to continue to attract female MBA students?
There's a lot going on, and actually, we just wrapped up our Ross Women's Weekend and Up Close Diversity Weekend in early October. We had 156 people come through Ross. So that is an event that we put on just for our URM and our women prospective students. And on top of that, this is the first year we've done this, but at the same time that we held our Ross Women's Weekend, it was also the Women in Leadership Conference that is managed by Michigan Business Women. And actually, Manisha, who is on the call with us today, she actually sits on the board for MBW. So Manisha, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the resources we have here for elevating women through the Women in Leadership Conference and other initiatives through MBW?
Yeah, so we just had Vilk as it came up. It's really like cool to see a bunch of female leaders in the space come in and talk to us about different subjects. I think people said like 2 of the sessions actually made them cry from like how impactful to hear those stories were. So we have Wilk in the fall, and then we have Spring Symposium in the spring. And they both are like our big flagship events where we have like alumni, female, like we have the Mamba group also come in, the MBA moms, other like people who are in the industry who've excelled and as female leaders in the space. But we also have like social events. We don't just keep it professional. We also have like going out to the apple orchards, picking apples to eat. We've had some like special topics where we talk about like, we had a poker 101 night, and it was based on making like decision making and with risks and how you can make those in the poker space, but also in business. We actually had like a couple of local Detroit alumni come in and see that event. So it was cool to catch up with some of them. And we had like last year, there was like a skincare 101 that was taught by like a dermatologist from U of M. So we try to like mix in some things that are more female focused while also keeping about the business space, and then bringing in alumni that we can network with and really make connections and helping provide that supportive space for women to excel in the business world.
Yeah, and one of the most memorable panels this year was on navigating challenging times. And so they brought in a great group of panelists, telling stories about how they were able to navigate, COVID or other challenges in their work and personal lives. And then we also have workshops on building your executive presence as a woman, right, in the C-suite, and how, there are so many double standards for women out there. If you're really aggressive, as a male, maybe you're seen as someone who's decisive, really great leadership skills, but then as a woman, you're seen as not so nice, right, a little bit catty. So we have a lot of resources to support our female, our female MBA students here to really help them, prepare for navigating that type of an environment as they move on in their careers. And Mambas is also something that's very, very, I think, special to Ross. I have not heard of a club like this at other schools, but I could be wrong. But it's basically a group for, MBAs who are moms, right? Because the reality is that, as women, we are juggling not only our, professional career, our personal life, but then also all of the responsibilities that come with, having children. And so that's very important. There's also maternity leave for our MBA students. And we are always open to, new ideas on how we can support our female students and applicants, during the application process too. And I would say this is it's a very special part of our community, and one that we definitely value, and we try our best to provide what we can, whether it's in resources, funding resources, to support this group. Yeah.
I just looked it up real quick, and the University of Michigan founded their Women's Studies and Gender Studies in 1973. So there's a long history of having this as a presence on the campus.
Yeah.
I'm also going to put up those 2 names that Trent mentioned earlier.
Wow, there's so much to talk about, and I can't believe that we're almost at the top of the hour right now. So before I let you all go, good luck to the students on the recruiting season, and really like our best wishes to you. But before you all go away, could we just go across the room and quickly, can you share your one tip for our MBA hopefuls who are watching this and who are ready to be applying for round 2?
Okay, I can go first. My tip is really just to do some self-reflection, right? I think that's always a great thing to do, whether you're in the application process or you've already applied, or even as an MBA student, because self-reflection is so important to growth and to really find out what it is that you're hoping to achieve in your life or in your career. So take some time and do, some self-reflection.
Great, Megan.
Yeah, I'm going to go with something similar and just like go with your gut as you're going through. A lot of times your first thought or, what just feels good tends to be the right solution. There's a lot of great options. But I think that's, make sure that it feels right, like that gut feeling.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Manisha?
Yeah, I think just like learn about the universities you're applying to, like look at their reports of where students are going to after they graduate. Try to talk to some of the students if you can, do a campus visit or join like some of their international happy hours. Like we have so many student ambassadors who are willing to talk to students.
Wonderful. And Trent, you're
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah,
Not the last.
I can add on to that. And I was just going to say, reach out to two people. And I think Manisha hinted at one, but definitely reach out to a current student and understand more about their process, but also reach out to an alumni or someone that's sort of in the same lane that you wish to travel. And then do that for other schools too and see who actually responds. I think you'll see that the Ross community and our Ross alumni are very responsive and want to see you do well. So that would be my advice for you. Good luck.
Oh, thank you so much. So it's always a pleasure, right, to get a bunch of Wolverines together. So thanks so much, everybody. That's all the time that we have for today. But I want to thank our featured guests here, Lysa, Megan, Manisha, and Trent, for their candid answers and insights on what all the things that are new at Ross, but most importantly, how the action-based learning can be a big advantage for you, especially if you're looking to pivot. And if you like today's episode, please give us a little thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to MBA Waves to stay on top of all the latest trends and news in the world of MBAs. Finally, don't forget to check us out next week, same time and place. And for full access to the upcoming and past episodes, please head to mbawaves.com. Bye, everybody, and thanks so much.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Blue.